Hello, this is Rudy Giuliani, and I'm here with Rudy's Common Sense. This is possibly the most consequential and the most important one that we've ever done, because in my simple opinion, the future of America rides on the decision you're going to make on November 3rd. And if you choose Joe Biden, we become a country that will be guided by socialism, authoritarianism, and the kind of censorship you're living through right now by big tech, big media, and big businesses who are controlled or feel they're controlled by the Chinese market. You're experiencing it because you're not hearing the facts I'm about to outline for you briefly. And I hope this brief outline leads you to look into this in great detail, both on our podcast and on many others where they're being reported as if we are in a dictatorship. Because I'm not allowed on main television to tell you these things, even though they're 100% absolutely true, verifiable by witnesses, video recordings, tape recordings, hard drives. The reason they're doing it is because this is true and it's dangerous, and it breaks up their control over you, and it breaks up their ability to make billions of dollars, and the only person standing in their way is Donald J. Trump. And that's why he must be elected, this time to save our country. So let me tell you about the Biden crime family. You know, for some time, probably a year and a half or so, I have referred to the Biden crime family. For that, I've been called a Russian agent, insane, an alcoholic. Oh, those are the good things they call me. The reality is I'm the same Rudy Giuliani that put the mafia in jail, the Colombian drug dealers, both of whom threatened to kill me a number of times, Wall Street, numerous corrupt politicians, both on the federal and state and city level, Republican and Democrat, many of them far smarter than the Bidens, who do have an intellectual defect. But the worst defect they have is a moral defect, and particularly the leader of the family, the big guy. He's an out-and-out, stone-cold criminal in the disguise of a presidential candidate of a party that at the very top has been corrupted, I think, since the time Bill Clinton took it over. Let me say to my friends who are Democrats, 99% of the Democratic Party is made up of good people. They're as good as Republicans, sometimes better. But you are captured now. You're conned and captured by a small group, but very influential group, of true, absolute criminals who have sold out this country for money, for power, for greed, maybe even for other things. So let me get to it. I was the person who initiated the racketeering case, the use of it, against the mob, against Wall Street, against corrupt politicians. The Biden family case is a quintessential racketeering case. And if I were to do it as a racketeering case, I'd go back 30 years. And I'd show all of the corruption that was involved when Joe became a senator and his brother Jim became a crooked lobbyist, and they were doing deals for a couple of thousand, 10,000, 50. And then his son got a job for a big bank in Delaware, and Joe all of a sudden became the biggest banking lobbyist, and he lobbied against he was the only Democrat who lobbied against the bankruptcy bill because the bank had Hunter in a no-show job. Very similar to Ukraine. But I'm going to confine this to the four, if not most recent, the four that are the easiest to cover. And therefore, I think you'll get them pretty easily. So Ukraine, you know the most about. Let's simplify Ukraine. Ukraine, Hunter Biden, fresh out of being tossed out of the Navy for drug addiction, is hired by the crookedest man in Ukraine in order to get his father, then Vice President Biden, and the point man for the Ukraine, handing out all the money in the Ukraine. The point of that $8 to $14 million is not to hire an unfortunate drug addict who never shows up in Ukraine in 6 years. It's to get Joe's office and to use it for a specific purpose. And the specific purpose is to get the case against Burisma, which is the crooked company that Hunter goes to work for, owned by Mykola Zlochevsky, to get that case dismissed. So Mykola Zlochevsky can come back from exile and he can keep the $5.4 billion that he stole from Ukraine. I know this is hard to believe because we're good people and we don't believe that crooked politicians do this, but the Bidens have been doing this all their lives, and this was a big score for them. And that is why Joe Biden had the prosecutor fired. And then it was said the prosecutor was corrupt, and the prosecutor was this, and the prosecutor was that. Believe me, this prosecutor, on the level of corruption in Ukraine, was a little... Joe was dealing with the big crooks in Ukraine. Mr. Poroshenko, the president of the Ukraine, alleged to have stolen $7 to $8 billion. Good friend of Joe's. Good friend of the ambassador. And he made a big, big score on dismissing the Burisma case. The Bidens got the 9 to 14 million. The Ukrainians are now investigating their ex-president for taking $100 million to dismiss this case against one of the richest men in Ukraine, who now has been allowed to come back from the Ukraine, kept his $5.4 billion, keeps his crooked company, and continues to go on to steal in the Ukraine, thanks to our vice president, Joseph Biden, whose Biden crime family enriched themselves to the tune of 8 to 14 million. Then we have Iraq. Joe was appointed to negotiate a status of forces agreement in Iraq. Joe does what he always does when he has to negotiate. He fails. I used to think it was out of stupidity. Well, now I find that his brother James, a man who has no experience in housing, is just at the very same time cut into a $1.5 billion housing contract in Iraq. James is cut in. Joe loses to Iraq. We got the same pattern here, right? Joe loses in Ukraine. Family comes away with 14 million. Joe loses in Iraq. James comes away with 1/3 of a $1.5 billion contract. Now we switch over to Russia for a quick one. $3.5 million from the widow of the mayor of Moscow, Elena Buturina, to Hunter Biden. Additional little payments amounting to about a total of $4 million to Hunter Biden. No explanation. I do not think Elena Buturina is paying $3.5 to $4 million to Hunter Biden. What do you think? Well, when you go through the documents and you go through the witnesses now available and you go through the hard drive, this was the beginnings of setting up a money laundering operation. Elena Buturina is the richest woman in Russia. She is a close ally of Vladimir Putin. She helped to depose her husband as mayor of Moscow. And she, like the other two we're talking about, is a very dangerous woman. However, there's a flow of $4 million right into the Biden crime family, and it's one of Joe's many lies. You might remember in the first debate, Joe was confronted with a $3.5 million payment to his son from the mayor of Moscow's wife, and he said categorically, no. One of 1,000 lies. I, as a prosecutor, call that a false exculpatory statement, which can be used to prove evidence of guilt. It's done in trials all the time. It's a rule of evidence that's about 500 years old. Joe wouldn't know it because he cheated his way through law school. This is a good time to take a short break. I couldn't believe we were evicted from our home that we didn't even sell. Those are the words of a homeowner, Deborah, when she learned she was the victim of home title fraud. It's a devastating crime that can cost you your home. And title fraud is not covered by insurance or common identity theft services. The only folks to trust that I know of to protect your home's title is Home Title Lock. Cyber thieves have discovered the titles to our homes are kept online. They forge your name on your deed stating you sold your home, and they refile as the new owner. In Deborah's case, she didn't even know she was a victim until the eviction notice arrived in her mail. Home Title Lock protects you and your home by putting a virtual barrier around your home's title. The instant they detect tampering, they mobilize to shut it down. Go online to HometitleLock.com and register your address to see if you're already a victim and don't know it. Then use code RUDY, that's me, and sign up for 30 free days of protection. That's code RUDY at HometitleLock.com. let's continue with the description of this racketeering case. Now we get to the main event, let's call it, at least so far the main event. Because the money I'm talking about here, the 14, the 4, although the Russia one could have gone as high as 200. Some people even say 800, but I cannot tell you that yet. Further investigation of this hard drive is necessary. So let's leave it at 4 million from Russia. Kind of ironic, because didn't they pursue Donald Trump for Russian collusion for 4 years based on a frame-up from Hillary Clinton? That's in Brennan's handwriting, which the FBI concealed for 4 years. Somebody's got to figure out why the FBI keeps concealing records that make it clear that Trump is innocent and Hillary and Biden are guilty. Something weird about that, called corruption. Well, in any event, we get to China. Let's separate these two deals, because in the slight descriptions you've gotten that have leaked out beyond the Iron Curtain, they've been kind of confused. They're both equally incriminating. The first one happens when he's vice president. Joe takes Hunter with him on Air Force Two to China. Joe is going there as a point man, which is when Joe always makes money when he's a point man, as a point man for Barack Obama. And his job is to get China out of the islands they had recently militarized that they dispute with Japan. And secondly, to get tariffs, oppressive tariffs, reduced. Remember, high tariffs cost you your jobs. So this is no joking matter. So Joe negotiates for 8 days. We don't know what Hunter does for 8 days. We do know that when they get home, Joe is a failure. The newspapers of the day say that Joe was unable to achieve either objective. And then within a short period of time, it gets even worse, because China increases the militarization of the disputed islands, and it raises the tariffs even further. So if you live, let me pick a few states. If you live in Pennsylvania, or if you live in Ohio, or if you live in Michigan, or if you live in even Wisconsin, Iowa, you can thank Joe Biden for having lost your job. And by the way, here's what happens. He doesn't just lose you your job, he gets paid for it. Because 8 days after they return from China, a letter arrives. And the letter is from the Bank of China to Hunter Biden and Hunter Biden's corrupt, stupid, ridiculous private equity fund for a $1 billion commitment. Goldman Sachs doesn't get commitments like this without massive due diligence. Massive due diligence would reveal, actually a little bit of due diligence would reveal that this stupid, crooked private equity fund is made up of the following partners. Hunter Biden, son of the vice president. Chris Hines, stepson of the Secretary of State. James Bulger, the nephew of Whitey Bulger and head of the Thornhill Corporation. Whitey Bulger, one of the most notorious organized criminals and murderers in the United States. And fourth, the Bank of China. So the vice president's son and the Secretary of State's stepson, at a time of great sensitivity for the national interests of the United States with China, is in a $1 billion partnership with the government of China, and you are not told about it. Does Barack Obama know about it? If he doesn't, was he sleeping through that like he slept through Benghazi? Or is he responsible for enabling this corruption, similar to the way he was in enabling the corruption of the crooked Clintons and the fix of the Clinton case? Big question, necessary to answer. And it's got to get beyond the Iron Curtain, because they cover up, the Iron Curtain does, the massive corruption of the Obama administration, and it goes way beyond Biden. And that's why they're fighting so hard to cover this up. Well, in any event, it gets worse. China then sends another $500 million to this completely corrupt, totally stupid private equity fund run by a gangster's nephew and 2 children of crooked American politicians. And I'll include John Kerry in that. So, How did this not get disclosed if it isn't hidden? How does our American intelligence services, how do they not know about it? How does John Kerry not know about it and report it? How? Because the Obama administration is thoroughly corrupt. And the media that covers them is either so politically zealous and crazy and insane or corrupt. Remember, some of the media is owned by the big tech that makes a fortune in China. Despite this, we never find out about it until it's revealed by Peter Schweiker in his book, Secret Empires. And when it's revealed, the Iron Curtain makes sure that you don't find out about it, given no publicity, no attention. This is a startling revelation. And now we get to the most recent one, the one that is disclosed. Well, all of these, by the way, are completely corroborated by the hard drive, the 40 or 50,000 text messages and emails and photographs that were recovered from Hunter Biden's repairman. It is Hunter Biden's hard drive. No point in my spending any time on that. That is such a stupid allegation that it's Russian, or it's been corroborated now by independent witnesses, by technical experts, by the FBI, by other police organizations. It's corroborated by me internally with secret information that I have about Hunter Biden that could only be on here. You think I don't have other witnesses? And now we will take a short break. I want to make sure you're prepared to vote on November 3rd. The radical Democrats are doing everything in their power to stop President Trump from winning. And we want to make sure patriots like you are heard. This is the election of our lifetime. A vote for President Donald Trump is a vote to save our nation. Make sure your ballot is counted. Text Rudy, R-U-D-Y, to 88022 for more information. That's Rudy, R-U-D-Y, to 88022 for more information. Thank you. Welcome back. Now we get to maybe the most troubling of all. This is a deal made in anticipation of Joe Biden becoming president. And it's a deal that's made with several high-level members of the Communist Party. So we have to understand who they are. And the name of the corporation is CEFC. It's a Chinese company that engages in energy, but looks more like it's a front for intelligence activities. It's run by a man named Xi Jinping. His American operative is Patrick Ho, and his second American operative is Gongwan Deng, who's referred to as Kevin Deng. They're on one side. They negotiate a deal, and I have all the papers for the negotiation. They'll be on my website. You can examine them. There's one very, very good one, and I'll explain it to you. So the Chinese communists are going to pay the Biden family, and the people disclosed here of the Biden family are Hunter Biden, James Biden, and Sarah Biden. That's son, brother, sister-in-law. Jinwan Ming is going to put in $10 million per year for a total of $30 million. And then everyone earns, including the Bidens, 50% on the equity after that. So it's $10 million for sure for the crooked Bidens, and then 50% more depending on success. What are the crooked Bidens supposed to do for this? They're supposed to make introductions. Make introductions for $10 million a year. And then you got all the back and forth. Actually, Hunter is negotiating for more. It begins at $30 million a year. They add the 50% equity. Then he wants even more. They turn that down. And finally, we get a contract. But we don't just get a contract. We get a contract. And then if you search a little bit more in the hard drive, you come up with a hidden term sheet. The hidden term sheet has all the equities laid out. They seem a little different. And then when you get to the end, you see they left over 10%. And it says 10% to H boop, boop, for the big guy. Now, who's the big guy? Well, I'll make it easy. If you look at another 3 or 4 texts, You see throughout, Hunter Biden refers to his father as the big guy. In other words, one friend saw his father at a political gathering at the Leipzig club, and there is a text, I just saw the big guy at the Leipzig club. And then you see, right below it, Vice President Biden addressed people at the Leipzig club. Then in another you say, should we give this information to the big guy? And then in another, we have a memo that says to the participants in it who are not Biden's, please do not, make sure you do not use the name Joe Biden ever. In other words, we're going to conceal the fact that Joe Biden is involved in it. This is a good time to take a short break. If you want a good cigar, go to a good cigar shop. You want the best, go to Famous Smoke Shop. Let Famous Smoke deliver your favorite cigars right to your doorstep at America's lowest prices. Famous opened in 1939 as a small shop in New York City. Today, it's the largest privately held American-owned cigar business in the country. That's 80 years experience in the cigar business, and they're putting that experience to work for you, making deals on the cigars you love, from affordable, everyday smokes to high-end luxury cigars for your next special occasion. Go to famous-smoke.com/Rudy and click the Activate button to apply the promo code. Pick from more than 1,000 cigar brands, fresh and ready to ship from Famous Smoke's climate-controlled, 24,000 square foot humidor. Check out with the promo code RUDY20. That's Rudy, R-U-D-Y, 20, and get $20 off your order. Every cigar purchase you make is backed by the Famous Freshness Guarantee. Get real cigars from a real cigar shop, shipped direct to you from Famous Smoke Shop. Go to famous-smoke.com/Rudy. That's famous-smoke.com/Rudy. Let's continue with this description of the criminality of the Biden crime family. You put this all together, and you put together the testimony now under oath of Mr. Bablinski, and what you have is Joe Biden is getting 10% of the money from communist China, 10%. And now if you want the overarching scheme that ties together all 30 years of this, let's call it the kill shot, the piece of evidence that every prosecutor dreams of. This is a text message from Hunter Biden to his daughter as she is taking on some of the responsibilities in the family. And here's what the text message reads. I love all of you, but I don't receive any respect. And that's fine, I guess. Works for you, apparently. I hope you all can do what I did and pay for everything for this entire family for 30 years. It's really hard, but don't worry. Unlike Pop, I won't make you give me half your salary. Key facts. Pays for everything for 30 years, precisely the number I used a year and a half ago for the duration of the Biden crime family. And not only does he take care of expenses, including, for example, his half-sister's tuition forever, but he gives half the salary to Pop. Pop is another name for Joe Biden, AKA Big Guy, AKA Pop, AKA Crook. You need more? Every single thing I gave to you is fact. There's much, much more. I don't have time to give you much, much more. I will in subsequent podcasts. But believe me, after handling over 5,000 cases, I've rarely seen one this strong. And I've never seen such a crooked man and such a crooked family so close to running the greatest country on earth. This will be a disaster for us. This man is owned lock, stock, and barrel by China. That's why they invested this money. He's been getting this money for years. That's why people have for years said, how can Joe Biden only make the salary of a senator with a wife who's a teacher and have five homes and live like a billionaire. This is why. Because the money going to Hunter Biden goes to Joe Biden. And now, doesn't that make sense? Hunter Biden has been a drug addict for all of these 30 years. Nobody's paying him this money. And everybody knows he's a drug addict. And all the photographs that I have of him being a drug addict, and all the inappropriate photographs I have of him that he describes as being very unsafe for children, Hunter, describes the photographs as being very unsafe for children. That's another email right here, just in case you think this is me, this is Hunter, and this is very serious. He says, he's talking about his sister-in-law, who was his lover. She told my therapist that I was sexually inappropriate with a 14-year-old girl when she says that I FaceTime naked with her, and the reason I can't have her out to see me is because I'll walk around naked, smoking crack, talking tom girls on FaceTime. When she was pressed, she said that I never said anything like that. But the bottom line is that I created a very unsafe environment for the kids. There are numerous text messages, emails, and photographs that support that. I brought this to the Delaware police within 4 days of seeing it. Joe Biden's been sitting on it for 3 years, so I conclude with the following observation. You may feel sorry for Hunter Biden. I do. I say, 30, 40 years ago, if that were my son and he were a drug addict, I'd get him treatment. I'd never put him in this kind of business. Never have him deal with Mykola Zlochevsky, murderer, organized criminal. Elena Buturina, member of Russian organized crime, close to Putin. Never have him deal with Xi Jinping, intelligence operative, organized criminal, high member of the Communist Party, and now executed, probably, and sitting in the Yangtze River. Or Patrick Ho, who gets arrested in the middle of this partnership. And the first person he asks for is James Biden. And of course, law enforcement does nothing with it but cover it up. Law enforcement has covered all of this up. So here's what emerges in the end. You're the only ones who can save this country. I can't save this country. I've done everything I can. I've been called every name in the book and sued and threatened with you can't imagine what. It makes me proud of myself that I'm able to do it anyway, so I'm a strange bird, all right? My father brought me up that way, and the mafia didn't stop me, and the FARC didn't stop me, and Islamic terrorists didn't stop me, and this low-level trash isn't going to stop me, because that's what they are, who somehow got near the White House, but don't let them get the White House. American people have common sense and decency. You got to stop these people. You got to get out and vote. You vote. You vote them down. You get them out, and I promise you that I will expend as much effort to clean this up so we no longer have censorship, and so we get these crooked politicians out of Washington, Republican or Democrat. There's just a few of them. They go back to the Clinton era. It's not just Democrats. It's mostly Democrats, but it's not just Democrats. Let's get rid of them all. Let's really drain the swamp this time. Really drain it. Now that we know what it really is, I never thought it was this bad. I thank you very, very much for your attention. I ask you to keep tuning in because there's much more of this. I try to keep it to the most relevant. Thank you, and let's end by just quietly tuning out and saying a prayer to God that he'll save our republic from this kind of corruption, depravity, and disaster.